So, the recording has started. Good evening, friends. Welcome to this Horizon of Science session, wherein we are going to know a bit about golden ratio. First thing that I have a question is કે આપણે આ golden ratio નો topic લીધો છે પહેલા કે નથી લીધો? This is what I wanted to ask first. I think પહેલી વાર છે, but I just want to know કે કોઈ યાદ હોય કોઈને આ golden ratio નો topic લીધો છે કે નહીં? લીધો છે કોઈએ? કોઈને યાદ આવતું એવું ખાસ કરીને સિનિયર્સમાંથી પ્રિયા ત્વરા કોઈને યાદ આવે છે કાંઈ?
સર ફિબોનાકી સિરીઝમાં થોડુંક આવ્યું હતું.
કોણે લીધું હતું? બીકોઝ મને એવું યાદ આવે છે કંઈક 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 એવું હોય એવું.
કદાચ એસાએ જ લીધું હતું કે હેમાંગી.
સર મેચ લીધેલો છે ફિબોનાકી સિક્વન્સ
હા
ટોપિક.
સારું, તો this would be your second part, right? If I'm not mistaken, તેના જેવું થશે. This would be your second part.
Yes,
Continuation of Fibonacci series, because they are actually interrelated and interconnected, of what I know.
yes.
Another question before you start. કેટલા લોકોને golden ratio વિશે ખબર છે? Please raise your hand. જેને ખબર હોય એ લોકો હાથ પ્લીઝ રેઝ કરશો. તરંગ ઇઝ હિયર. ગુડ ઇવનિંગ તરંગ. બહુ દિવસે ભાઈ.
Hello, sir. I am audible.
Yes, you're audible. Yes, you're audible. Okay, great.
સર સ્ટાર્ટ કરી દઉં ને?
Yes, yes. હવે એક જ જણો છે જેને ખબર છે, so in a way it is good. જો બધાય નથી ખબર તો. So we welcome Vaja Aesha today, and she is going to present her presentation topic, that is the golden ratio. So all the best. The stage is yours, Aesha. Go ahead. એને ઓલું કરી નાખજે, સ્લાઇડ શો કરી નાખજે. હેલો. હેલો.
Sorry, sir. I have network issues. I
હા.
am I audible, sir?
Yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Good evening, friends. Myself Aesha Vaja, and today my topic is on golden ratio. It is a mathematical topic, and so we start this topic. First આપણે introduction જોશું, એના પછી એની history, applications. એક topic છે pyramid and disrupted observations, જે આપણે YouTube through વિડીયોમાં જોશું. And so it's in introduction. In mathematics, two quantities are in the golden ratio. જ્યારે golden ratio માં છે ને બે quantities લે છે આપણે. ધારો કે કોઈ આપણે રેક્ટેંગલ લીધું છે તો એની width એની length, so a and b થી આપણે તેને ઓળખીએ તો a and b આપણે લઈએ તો એટલે ટોટલ ટુ ક્વોન્ટિટીઝ છે. એનો રેશિયો છે ને a by b એ ગોલ્ડન રેશિયો જેટલો જ થશે. સો ઇટ્સ એલ્જિબ્રિકલી આપણે એક્સપ્રેશન કરી શકીએ. તો એલ્જિબ્રિકલી આપણે જો એક્સપ્રેસ કરીએ ને તો a plus b by a, so it's very large than it's very large, then we called it's a by b, and it is denoted by phi. Phi is a Greek letter, and it represents the golden ratio. It is an irrational number. Golden ratio છે અસમય સંખ્યા છે. મેથેમેટિક્સમાં સમય સંખ્યા અસમય સંખ્યા ગણ આવે છે, જે સેટ જે હોય છે તેમાં જે ગોલ્ડન રેશિયો છે ઇરેશનલ નંબર છે, અને એનું જે રૂટ છે એ આપણને x² - x - 1 = 0 આ ક્વોડ્રેટિક ઇક્વેશન નું રૂટ મળે છે, જે phi = 1 plus √5/2 and its value near equal to 1.618033, and it is a golden number, most beautiful number in universe કહેવામાં આવે છે આ golden number ને. And the golden ratio is also called the golden mean or golden section, and Latin નામ છે Saxoria. Other names include extreme and mean ratio, medical section, divine proportion. જેનું ડિવાઇન proportion છે એનું પણ એક લેટિન નામ આપેલું છે કે proportio divina. ડિવાઇન સેક્શન જે સેક્સિયો ડિવાઇના આ પણ એનું લેટિન નામ છે. પછી ગોલ્ડન proportion, golden cut and golden number. મોસ્ટલી તો આપણે golden number થી જ જાણતા હોય છીએ, બાકી આ ઘણા નામ પણ બીજા છે જેને આપણે golden ratio ના નામે કહી શકીએ. આપણે એની હિસ્ટ્રી જોઈએ તો એ ગ્રીક મેથેમેટિશિયન્સ દ્વારા ફાઇન્ડ કરેલું છે. એ લોકોએ ફર્સ્ટ સ્ટડી કરેલું છે golden ratio ને, because frequent appearance in geometry the division of a line into extreme and mean ratio. The golden section is important in the geometry of regular pentagrams and pentagons. અને જે pentagrams અને pentagons shape છે એમાં બહુ જરૂરી લાગે છે golden ratio, અને મોસ્ટ ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ પોતાનો ફાળો આપે છે એની સ્ટડી માટે. Then golden ratio was studied peripherally over the next millennium. Abu Kamil 850 to 930 employed it in his geometric calculation of pentagons and decagons. His writings influenced that of Fibonacci, who used the ratio in related geometric problems through never connected it to the series of numbers named after him. જે જીઓમેટ્રી પ્રોબ્લેમ્સ છે એમાં પણ ગોલ્ડન રેશિયો ને રિલેટેડ ઘણી થિયરીઝ છે, અને જે નંબર્સની થિયરી છે એની સાથે ગોલ્ડન રેશિયો ને ટૂંકમાં કહેવાય ને કે કોઈ લાગુ નથી પડતું, એમ એનાથી અલગ જ એક છે જે, અને ફિબોનાકી સિરીઝ સાથે ગોલ્ડન રેશિયો ખૂબ જ અગત્યનો ભાગ ભજવે છે. એની સાથે આપણે રિલેશન કહેવાય ને કે સારા છે આ પ્રમાણમાં, એટલે એકબીજા સાથે ખૂબ જ કનેક્ટેડ છે ફિબોનાકી સિક્વન્સ એન્ડ ગોલ્ડન રેશિયો. લ્યુકા પેકોલી named his book Divine Proportion after the ratio and explored its properties, including its appearance in some of the Platonic solids. Leonardo da Vinci, who illustrated the aforementioned book, called the ratio the Saxoria, જેને golden section કહેવાય છે. 16th century mathematicians such as Raphael Bombelli solved the geometrical problems using the ratio. એટલે મેથેમેટિકલ જે જીઓમેટ્રિક સેક્શન છે એમાં ગોલ્ડન રેશિયો છે ખૂબ જ અગત્યનો ફાળો છે એનો, કેમ કે બધા સોલ્યુશન એનાથી મળી શકે છે. Michael Mastelin, the first to write a decimal approximation of the ratio. જે golden ratio ની કિંમત છે 1.6 something માઇકલ મેસ્ટેલિને આપેલી છે, and about એની જે વેલ્યુ છે 0.618034 in 1597 માં આપેલી છે. અને યુનિવર્સિટી ઓફ ટ્યુબેન્જિન in a letter to Kepler, his former student, જે માઇકલ મેસ્ટેલિન છે કેપ્લર ના સ્ટુડન્ટ હતા, જે યુનિવર્સિટી ઓફ ટ્યુબેન્જિન માંથી જેમણે આ વેલ્યુ શોધેલી છે. By 1910, a mathematician Mark Began, he using the Greek letter phi as a symbol for the golden ratio. It has also been represented by tau. ઘણા લોકો નોર્મલી ટો પણ કહેતા હોય છે અને એને ટાઉ પણ કહેવામાં આવે છે. The first letter of the ancient Greek tau, જેને કટ ઓર સેક્શન એનો એવો મિનિંગ થાય છે. ઇટ્સ કેલ્ક્યુલેશન, જો મેથેમેટિકલ કેલ્ક્યુલેશન જોવામાં આવે તો એના બે જે આપણે ક્વોન્ટિટીઝ લીધેલી હતી a and b, so a by b is equal to 5 and its value is equal to 1 plus root 5 by 2. One method for finding the value of phi is to start with the left fraction through simplifying the fraction and substituting in b by a is equal to 1 upon 5. So a plus b by a, જે આપણે ટુ ક્વોન્ટિટીઝ પહેલા લીધેલી હતી એમાં આપણે પર્સનલી જે ન્યુમરેટરને આપણે પર્સનલી ડિવાઈડ કરીએ. So a by a plus b by a. B by A, we called 1 upon 5. So A by A is equal to 1 and B by A is equal to 1 upon 5. And its value is 1 plus 1 upon 5. And 1 plus 1 upon 5 નો જો વેલ્યુ મેળવવામાં આવે ને તો એ પણ 5 જેટલી જ આપણને મળે છે, જે કેલ્ક્યુલેશન કરતા મળે. And last we multiply by 5 gives both side we multiply 5. Then 5 plus 1 is equal to 5 square. And jo left side right side જો 5 plus 1 ને shift કરવામાં આવે તો 5 square minus 5 minus 1 is equal to 0. અને આ જે સોલ્યુશન, આ જે ઇક્વેશન મળે છે ક્વોડ્રેટિક ફોર્મ્યુલા કહેવામાં આવે છે. અને ક્વોડ્રેટિક ફોર્મ્યુલાના બે સોલ્યુશન આપણને જે મળે છે એ સોલ્યુશન આપણને જે ગોલ્ડન રેશિયો છે એની વેલ્યુ આપે છે. 1 plus root 5 by 2 is equal to 1.618033 and 1 minus root 5 by 2 જે આપણને નેગેટિવ વેલ્યુ આપે છે -0.618033. And both are value of 5. It's both are golden number. Then its application, Leonardo Vinci's illustration of a dodecahedron from Pecoli's diamond proportion in 1509. લિયોનાર્ડો નું છે આ ડ્રો કરેલું. And its applications in art. Leonardo da Vinci's illustration of polyhedra in diagonal proportion have led some to speculate that he incorporated the golden ratio in his paintings. લિયોનાર્ડો દ વિંચીના જે ઘણા એવા પેઇન્ટિંગ્સ છે જેમાં ગોલ્ડન રેશિયોનો યુઝ થયેલો આપણને જોવા મળે છે. The suggestion that his Mona Lisa, for example, employs golden ratio proportion is not supported by Leonardo's own writings. Second, music. જે મ્યુઝિકનું અમુક સાઉન્ડ્સ છે એન્ડ એના સ્કેલ્સ છે એમાં પણ ગોલ્ડન રેશિયો સાથે એનું રિલેશન જોવા મળે છે. So hence Bohlen proposed the non-octave repeating 833 cents scale. જે 833 cents scale છે એ મ્યુઝિકનો એક સ્કેલ છે based on combination tones, the tuning features, relation based on the golden ratio. As a musical interval, the ratio 1.618 is 833.090 cents. And its use in nature. Detail of the social plant, Onium tabuliform, showing the multiple spiral arrangement in જે પેરાસ્ટિચી કહેવામાં આવે છે, જે આપણે લીવ્સ ટ્રીના જે લીવ્સ હોય છે એમાં એન્ડ બાકી ઘણા જે પ્લાન્ટ્સ હોય છે એમાં પણ આ આપણને ડિઝાઇન જોવા મળે છે જે ગોલ્ડન સ્પાઇરલ કહેવામાં આવે છે, જે golden ratio denote કરે છે. The golden ratio has been used to analyze the proportion of natural objects as well as man-made systems such as financial markets, in some cases based on diffuse fits to data. The golden ratio appears in some patterns in nature, including the spiral arrangement of leaves and other plant parts. જે પિરામિડ્સ જે ઇજિપ્તમાં આવેલું છે પિરામિડ એમાં પણ ગોલ્ડન રેશિયોનો યુઝ થયેલો હોય એવું માનવામાં આવી રહ્યું છે. One Egyptian pyramid that is close to a golden pyramid is the Great Pyramid of Giza, as known as the Pyramid of Chiefs of uh, or Khufu. Its slope of 51 degree 52 point is close to the golden pyramid. Inclination of 51 degree 50 point and even closer to the pi-based pyramid, inclination of 51 degree point 51. However, several other mathematical theories of the shape of the Great Pyramid based on rational slopes have been found to be both more accurate and more plausible explanation for the 51 degree point 52 slope. જેની કિંમત છે આપણને ગોલ્ડન રેશિયોની નજીક જોવા મળે છે અને લાસ્ટ પોઈન્ટ આપણો જે હતો એ વિડીયોઝ માંથી જોવાનો છે.
તારામાં થશે અવાજ ચાલુ? આઈ ગેસ તારામાં અવાજ ચાલુ નહીં થાય.
Sir, am I audible?
You are audible. Please play the video. I would like to know whether the voice is coming or not. I guess the voice is not there.
Okay.
Do one thing. Share me the link. મને લિંક શેર કર.
Okay.
અને then even I have to show you a couple of things. બરાબર છે? તો સાથે પહેલા તારો વિડીયો દેખાડી પછી હું મારી શેર કરીશ. We still have a lot of time left.
Okay, sir. So I share.
તારે પ્રેઝન્ટેશનમાં કંઈ બાકી નથી ને હવે?
ના સર.
ઓકે. મોકલું?
સર મોકલું એક.
શું થયું, વાર લાગે છે? Okay. Are they the same or
No,
they are
sir,
different? Are they the same or they are different? They are different, right?
no, sir, different. Different.
Okay. So give me a second. I'll just share. See, this is where the laptop is needed. કારણ કે ફોનની અને લેપટોપની અંદરના માઇક્રોસોફ્ટ ટીમ્સના છે ને રાઇટ્સ જુદા જુદા છે. Let's see what is golden ratio. Is the screen visible to everyone?
Divine number.
Yes, sir.
પાકું બધું દેખાય છે અને વ્યવસ્થિત બધું ચાલે છે ને?
Yes, sir.
Design myth. How much do you know about the golden ratio? Since the time of the ancient Greeks, artists, designers, thinkers, scientists, and engineers have been fascinated by the golden ratio. Also denoted as phi, the golden ratio has, over the centuries, even been considered as the perfect illustration of beauty. For the uninitiated, the golden ratio, also called the golden mean, the golden section, or the divine proportion, is one of the most famous irrational numbers. Like another famous irrational number, pi, the golden ratio goes on forever. This mathematical concept is said to appear in nature and in various iconic pieces of art. It has allegedly inspired artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. The Mayans, ancient Greeks, and Egyptians are all said to have incorporated this divine number into works of art and architecture, such as the Parthenon in Greece, although it is not really known if these were intentionally designed that way. Some researchers also feel that the importance of phi in nature and culture has been vastly overblown. So what is the golden ratio? The golden ratio was first described in Euclid's Elements around 2300 years ago. It is found by dividing a line in two parts so that the long part divided by the short part is equal to the whole length divided by the long part. The number that results is also related to the Fibonacci sequence. As a quick refresher, each number in the Fibonacci sequence after the first ones is derived by adding the two numbers before it. The ratio of each number to the previous number in the Fibonacci sequence is equal to phi, which is usually approximated as 1.618. Things get really fun though when you demonstrate this geometrically. That is because if you were to draw squares with the dimensions of the numbers in the sequence, you would create the famous golden rectangle. The harmony and proportions of the golden ratio were recognized by mathematicians like Aristotle, Pythagoras, Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, and Boethius, with some believing that the golden ratio could be the key to unlocking the divine secrets of the universe. The golden ratio has also been seen as a standard for beauty and aesthetics. Why? One reason is because it seems to appear often in nature. However, this is not as common as many think. The idea that the golden ratio is universally found everywhere is an exaggeration. The shape of the pine cone, Romanesco broccoli, and the shell of the nautilus are often given as typical examples of the golden ratio. However, none of these really follows the proportions of the golden ratio. You can also find the Fibonacci sequence in nature. The petals and leaves of plants are sometimes found within this pattern. However, not every plant behaves this way, so you cannot call this a universal property. This does not make the golden ratio any less interesting or valuable. Do we use the golden ratio today? Yes and no. Artists and designers may sometimes use the golden ratio in creating everything from products to brand logos. There has been a lot of discussion as to whether or not Apple's logo uses the golden ratio, and it does not stop there. Though the consensus is that the frequency of appearance of the golden ratio is exaggerated, it may have practical uses. The Fibonacci sequence has been used in the world of engineering, in computer data structures and sorting algorithms, audio compression, and architectural engineering. The golden ratio has also been useful to researchers in fields like high-energy physics, quantum mechanics, and cryptography. For artists, there may be another factor. Because the golden ratio is pleasing to the eye, artists may also have an unconscious bias towards including it in their work. What do you think? Do you believe the importance of the golden ratio is a myth? Or is it nature's number? Leave your comments below.
Imagine if there was a perfect number, a single number so flawless it formed the basis for all art and music, a number so important that it could be used across the disciplines of mathematics and physics, and a number so profoundly purposeful that the natural world and the universe would bend to its whims. That number is 1.618034. So let's find out why it's so important. At number 5, an explanation. The Fibonacci sequence is a string of numbers that begins with 0 and 1, which can be extended infinitely by adding up any two consecutive numbers to find the next in the sequence. When we add 0 and 1, we get 1, which is the third Fibonacci number. Then we add 1 and 1 to obtain our fourth Fibonacci number, which is 2. And if we continue with this elementary exercise, in addition, we get the numbers 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, etc., in a pattern that can be extended all the way to infinity. The sequence was introduced to the West in 1202 by Leonardo of Pisa, also known as Fibonacci, although it had already been identified by Indian mathematicians over 1,000 years beforehand. But this guy from Pisa shouted first, so he gets to name it after himself.
આ વસ્તુ મારે દેખાડવાની હતી હમણાં, but good that અહીંયા બોલાઈ ગયું. આપણે ઋષિમુનિઓએ આ ઓલરેડી ગોતેલું હતું. I'll try to show it somewhere. બરોબર? એ ગોતવાની ટ્રાય કરી છે મેં અત્યારે.
That's just how things work. As the world began to develop its understanding of mathematics, we soon realized this string of digits was of fundamental importance, and today we apply this knowledge in all manner of practical ways. Search algorithms, stock trading, gambling odds all make use of the Fibonacci sequence, but the way in which you have most likely encountered it is via the mysterious golden ratio, which appears in more random stuff than MSG and Jesse Hyman combined. At 4, the golden ratio. The golden ratio is a mathematical term used to describe the relationship of two figures, whereby the numbers seem to be in some form of complementary ratio. If you have a number A and a lower number B, then the two are in the golden ratio if the ratio between A versus B is similar to the ratio between the sum of A plus B versus A. The Greek letter ascribed to this ratio is phi, and its value was contracted to 1.618034. Basically, anything which comes close to this value in terms of its ratio is said to be perfectly proportioned. For example, a rectangle that measures 12.94 by 8 centimeters is in the golden ratio, because 12.94 divided by 8 is 1.6175. And if we add the width and length of the rectangle together to get 20.94, the ratio between this and the longer side, 12.94, is 1.6182. The golden ratio can be used to calculate perfect spirals, golden triangles, and other shapes and patterns too. But what does this have to do with the Fibonacci sequence? At 3, the link. To link the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio, we must look at the ratio between two consecutive Fibonacci numbers and observe the pattern this ratio takes as you go on. because it turns out that the further along the Fibonacci sequence you go, the closer the ratio between any two numbers is to the golden ratio. The ratio between 3 and 2 is 1.5. The ratio between 5 and 3 is 1.66. And if we skip along a few to see the ratio between the 12th and 13th Fibonacci numbers, we'll see that their ratio is 1.6179. The ratio between 144 and 233 is 1.6180, and so on and so forth. As we mentioned earlier, the golden ratio is 1.618034. So clearly the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence have some sort of link which we haven't worked out yet. And that is why so many smart folks have become absolutely obsessed with it. At number 2, the uses. The golden ratio has fascinated the world's most knowledgeable people for millennia since its discovery, and we have seen its influence in some of the finest works mankind has ever produced. Plato's study into the golden ratio was used in the designs of the Parthenon. The Egyptians displayed it in the planning and construction of the pyramids, and the likes of the Taj Mahal, Notre Dame, and the Great Mosque of Kairouan were also built according to this important mathematical law. Artists from Da Vinci to Dali also incorporated the golden ratio in the layout of their paintings, and the ratio can also be detected in the music of Debussy, Bach, Mozart, Chopin, and Beethoven. Even the Bible mentions things being constructed in the golden ratio, with Noah's Ark and the Ark of the Covenant both built in accordance with the ratio-driven commandments laid down by God. However, the one thing we're not entirely sure about is whether any or all of this was deliberate. Modern artists and architects know about the golden ratio and are known to apply it purposefully to their works. And we know that at least some historical buildings and artworks were created by people who knew of the golden ratio and its value. But this inexplicably pleasing proportion has been used by people ignorant of its existence too. So, is the golden ratio merely something which all human beings are attracted to? Is it something that we find inherently satisfying? And is this love of the number 1.618034 limited only to humans? And at number 1, nature's design. Is the golden ratio a universal law applied by nature? The evidence seems to suggest so, and the aforementioned Leonardo da Vinci may have alluded to this in some of his most famous works. Die Divine Proporzioni was a mathematical textbook illustrated by da Vinci in 1498, and in both this and his drawing of the Vitruvian Man, he points out examples of the golden ratio found within the human body. Psychologists have also noted that people whose facial, body, and bone structures adhere to the golden ratio are often deemed to be more attractive than their non-proportional counterparts. And if you'd like to pause the video to go measure your face right now, we totally understand. But you might want to hold on a second, because the most shocking example of the golden ratio within human beings is far more interesting. Did you know that the golden ratio even applies to our DNA? It's true, as both our double helix spirals and the composition of a single DNA molecule both seem to have been made in accordance with the divine proportion of the golden ratio. And it's not just humans either, as we've seen the ratio demonstrated in the shells of snails, the number of petals in a flower, and the arrangement of individual seeds within seed heads. Pine cones, tree branches, and root systems also follow the golden ratio, as do some forms of algae and the bodies of certain animals. Some creatures even live according to the golden ratio, with honeybee colonies known to maintain a ratio of males to females at 1 to 1.618. So, is this ratio evidence that nature has been somehow designed? Was everything on Earth created by a god or advanced extraterrestrial race to adhere to a certain number? It does look a little suspicious, especially when you also find out that the golden ratio also applies to hurricanes, spiral galaxies, and objects at the quantum level too. We're going to explore this idea in our bonus video, The Golden Ratio, Evidence of Intelligent Design, which you can watch on our Patreon page at patreon.com/strange mysteries. For a $2 a month pledge, which you can cancel at any time, you'll get to watch this, and indeed all of our bonus content, which goes deeper and darker into every topic than YouTube allows. If you don't want to donate, then it's cool. We still love you. And we'll continue to provide the best content we can under YouTube's restrictions. As you'll see if you watch our recent video on missing pieces of humanity's past.
Well, am I audible? I hope I'm audible right now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is what I found out. ઈશા જ્યારે આપતી હતી ત્યારે હું થોડું સર્ચ કરતો હતો સાથે સાથે. સો ઈશા સેજ રેકોર્ડિંગની અંદર વચ્ચે વચ્ચે આવ્યું હશે. સો વોટ આઈ હેવ ફાઉન્ડ આઉટ એ હું તમારી સાથે શેર કરીશ કે હિન્દુ આપણી જે કલ્ચર જે છે એની અંદર આ હતું કે નહીં. સો ઇટ સીમ્સ કે 2nd century BCE બિફોર ક્રાઇસ્ટ, રાઈટ, પિંગળા આપણા જે એક આપણે કહેવાય ને કે ગ્રામર જીનિયસ થઈ ગયા છે, બરાબર, સંસ્કૃતના, એમણે આખું એક છંદશાસ્ત્ર લખેલું છે. તો એ છંદશાસ્ત્રની અંદર એ જે ફિબોનાકી સિરીઝનું જે ટ્રાયેંગલ જે છે, પાસ્કલ્સ ટ્રાયેંગલ જેને આપણે કહીએ છીએ, જે હમણાં તમે વિડીયોમાં પણ જોયું, બરાબર છે, તો એ આપણે સાહેબે આપણા પિંગળા સાહેબે છંદશાસ્ત્રની અંદર એને મેરુ પ્રતાસ્ત્ર, બરાબર છે, આવા સ્ટેપ્સ ઓફ માઉન્ટ મેરુ અથવા મેરુ ખંડ, પોર્શન ઓફ માઉન્ટ મેરુ, આવી રીતના એને અલગ અલગ નામથી ઓળખવામાં આવે છે, બરાબર છે. એની તમને અહીંયા દેખાય છે. ઇટ ઇઝ ધ સેમ જે આપણને પાસ્કલ્સ ટ્રાયેંગલમાં જોવા મળ્યું હતું, જેને તમે આવી રીતના એડ કરતા જાઓ તો તમને તમારા ગોલ્ડન રેશિયો જે છે એ મળી જાય છે, રાઈટ. સો we'll just see this કારણ કે we don't have much time left. એક વિડીયો પણ છે એ જોઈ લઈશું આપણે. સો way back in 2nd century BCE, when Sanskrit and Hinduism were at the peak in the Indian subcontinent, the Hindus were accumulating knowledge like never before. What's the point in accumulating knowledge without propagating it further? That's where Sanskrit played a major role. Thanks to the flexible characteristics of the language, and by the way, Sanskrit is the most beautiful and the most scientifically accurate language. So જો તમને લોકોને સંસ્કૃત ન આવડતું હોય તો મેક ઇટ અ પોઈન્ટ કે તમે લોકો જેટલા અહીંયા મારી સાથે જોડાયેલા છે એટલા પ્લીઝ આઈ રિક્વેસ્ટ ઓલ ઓફ યુ કે તમે લોકો થોડું બટ લર્ન સંસ્કૃત, લર્ન સો દેટ યુ કેન ગીવ ઇટ ટુ યોર નેક્સ્ટ જનરેશન. ઓકે, હેન્સ આપણે કહેવાય ને કે ઇટ વોઝ એન આઈડિયલ લેંગ્વેજ ટુ કમ્પોઝ પોએટ્રી. પોએટ્રી કઈ રીતના અહીંયા જે દેખાડ્યું એ રીતના, બરાબર છે, છંદશાસ્ત્રની અંદર આપેલું છે. by imbibing these learnings into poems and propagating them through the oral means. એટલે આનો પોએટ્રીમાં યુઝ કરતા હતા અને પછી એને યુઝ કરીને પછી પોએટ્રીઝ બનાવતા હતા. Hence the art of poetry in Sanskrit were not just a matter of entertainment but actually a methodology to exchange ideas and also spread knowledge. Almost all knowledge, be it scientific or medical or philosophical, spiritual, astronomical, astrological, were all in the form of poetry. રાઈટ. સો બધી જ વસ્તુ આપણને ખબર છે કે પોએટ્રીના ફોર્મમાં જાય છે, બરાબર છે. તો વિથ ધીસ કઈ રીતે આનું કહેવાય ને કે જોડી શકાય એવું છે, તો એ જો અહીંયા છંદશાસ્ત્ર આવી ગયું. ધીસ પ્લેઝન્ટ ઇફેક્ટ ઇઝ કોલ્ડ અ છંદ, બરાબર છે. તો છંદશાસ્ત્રની વાત કરે છે અહીંયા. તો એ છંદશાસ્ત્રની અંદર એક લઘુ, એક ગુરુ, જસ્ટ અ મિનિટ, હિયર ઇટ ઇઝ, ધીસ ઇઝ વોટ આઈ વોન્ટેડ ટુ ટેલ યુ, બરાબર છે. આ ફિબોનાકી સિરીઝ છે ને અહીંયા માઉન્ટ મેરુ છે. દે આર એક્ઝેક્ટલી ધ સેમ, રાઈટ. સો લેટ અસ જસ્ટ સી હવે આ વિડીયો શું કહેવા માંગે છે, બરાબર છે.
Today, we're going to look at a number called the Fibonacci number and how this is a Hindu number which originally came from ancient India. And this Fibonacci number is the basis of life itself. Now, according to historians, the Fibonacci number was discovered around 1200 AD, that's about 800 years ago, by an Italian called Fibonacci. Fibonacci was not an Indian, and he was also not a Hindu. He was an Italian and he was a Catholic. So why is Fibonacci a Hindu number? First, we need to understand what is a Fibonacci number. Fibonacci number is a series of numbers like this. You may or may not include 0, and you can start 1, 1, 2, 3, 5.
20 lakh per annum. Yes, you heard it right. This is the amount on an average a freelance.
8, 13. What is so special about this series? And this series goes forever. Why not just make up another series like this? For example, why don't we say 2, 4, 6, 10, 16? What is different between this series and this Fibonacci series? Fibonacci number was not a random number made up by human beings. It is the number of the gods, and this is the difference between life and death. What do I mean by that? Why do I say that the Fibonacci number is the number of the gods? To understand the Fibonacci number and its connection to life, let's take a look at one cell. Let's just take one cell and let's assume that this cell has just been born. Before this, there was nothing, and then this cell has just been born. After 2 minutes, the cell becomes fully mature, and after the cell becomes fully mature, it gives birth to a new cell every minute. So in the first minute, the cell is brand new. In the second minute, the cell is 1 minute old. I'm putting one line for 1 minute old. In the third minute, the cell would have been fully mature. So I'm putting 2 lines like this. Now, it would have given birth to another cell. Now in the fourth minute, this cell is fully mature, so it will give birth to another cell. But this cell would be 1 minute old. In the fifth minute, this cell is already mature, so it gives birth to another one. Now this cell would be 1 minute old. This cell would be 2 minutes old. Because this is also mature, this gives rise to another cell. Now, what happens at the 6th minute? Now you can solve this problem in 2 methods. You can go on drawing circles and try to figure out how many cells will be there at the end of 6th minute. Or you may have recognized a pattern already. Here, this is 1, and here, this is 1. The next level is 2. This is actually 1 plus 1. This is 2. And this level is, you see 3 cells, which is actually 1 plus 2. This is why this is 3. And at this level, you can see this, there are a total of 5 cells, and you can see that it is 2 plus 3. That's 5. So at the 6th minute, your answer would be 8, because 3 plus 5 is 8. This is the Fibonacci series. And you may ask, do cells really replicate this way? Do cells multiply or divide like this? This is called the asymmetric cell division under optimal conditions. You can see the Fibonacci number not only at cell level, you can even see it in DNA supracode. Now, what is a DNA supracode? It's the organization of nucleic acid bases in a DNA sequence. Now, you can see the Fibonacci number in micro level in various places in a living organism. For example, you can also see it in the order of replication of DNA in living cells. So you do see that there is a connection between the Fibonacci numbers and life itself. So Fibonacci number holds the key to life. But do we need a microscope to see the Fibonacci number? Let's take a look at something we can see. Assume that I'm going to plant a seed in the soil. Okay? So this is a seed that I'm planting in the soil. The first day, the root will grow a little bit, and the second day, the root grows a little bit longer. After that, on the third day, it'll still grow longer, but it'll split into two. And on the fourth day, one will just grow longer while the other will split. Like this. This is kind of a weird drawing, and who's going to actually look at how seeds grow in real time? Believe it or not, this is what ancient Hindus were studying. What is the point of this diagram? The point is, if you take it at any timeline, it'll match the Fibonacci number. So here you can see 1, here you can see 1, here you can see 2, here you can see 3, and the root will grow further based on the Fibonacci number. And not just the root, as above, so below. So if you look at the stem or the trunk or shoot, again, you will see the same pattern of Fibonacci numbers growing. So you can see the Fibonacci number in roots, above the ground, in stems or shoot. You can also see it in leaves, you can see it in flowers, you can also see it in seeds. If you look at a sunflower,
I've been taking this supplement for over a year now, and I could say hands down, this is one of the best supplements I've ever tried.
there are seeds arranged in the middle of the flower, and they will always be in Fibonacci numbers. If you take a pineapple, and if you look at the scales, you'll be surprised because the scales will always be in 5, 8, 13, or 21. All of these are Fibonacci numbers. So you can understand that the Fibonacci number not only occurs at micro level, it also occurs at macro level. And this is not just limited to a plant or a tree. When the seeds disperse, even the seeds fall in Fibonacci patterns. So we're looking at an entire orchard that is formed on the basis of Fibonacci numbers. An entire forest will be designed based on the Fibonacci number. This is why I call Fibonacci as the number of the gods. But why do I call this amazing number, the Fibonacci number, as a Hindu number? Fibonacci number was discovered 800 years ago by an Italian who was a Catholic. But why do I call it a Hindu number? Let me clear the board and let me explain it to you. So Fibonacci discovered this number around 1200 AD. But 50 years before Fibonacci, there was a great Sanskrit poet in India called Hemachandra. Around 1150 AD, he was teaching some students about how to compose poetry. In Sanskrit syllables, there are short syllables and there are long syllables. The short syllable is called lagu, and it takes one beat of time. And the long syllable is called guru, and it takes 2 beats of time. Now, one of his students asks a question to Hemachandra. He says, there are 8 beats to fill up in a poem. How many combinations are there to fill using Lagu and Guru? So think about this. So you have 8 spaces you can fill. So you can take all short, for example, and you can also do all long, for example, and you can also do short, long, and you can do long, long, short. What do you think is the answer to this question? How many combinations do you think there are to be filling up these 8 spaces? Believe it or not, Hemachandra gives an instantaneous reply. He starts by saying, add 1 plus 1 and keep going and keep adding the consecutive numbers, and the 8th number you get is the number of combinations you can use to fill up these 8 spaces. So he actually gives the correct answer that the 8th Fibonacci number is the number of combinations you can use to fill up these spaces. And at this point, 2 things could shock you. One, if you know enough Indian history, you know Hemachandra was not a Hindu poet. He was a Jain poet. He belonged to Jainism. The second thing that could shock you is that Hemachandra was only 50 years before Fibonacci. Fibonacci was publishing his book around 1200 AD, and Hemachandra was giving out this answer to his students about 1150 AD, just about 50 years before Fibonacci. And that's not a big deal. Maybe these 2 people were contemporaries and they both had the same thoughts. But I'm shocked by the third aspect. Why did Hemachandra give an instantaneous reply? And why was the answer so brief without explaining how he came to that conclusion? Why did Hemachandra did not take his time to explain how he arrived at the right answer to such a complicated question? Think about this. When somebody asks you, here's a right angle triangle, and one side is 1 foot, the other side is also 1 foot, what is the length of the hypotenuse? To most people, they would really answer this as √2, and that would be the end of the conversation, because we have 2,500 years of Pythagoras theory before us, so we don't find the necessity to explain the same thing over. We don't really say this is 1 square and this is 1 square, and if you add both the squares, then it would be the result of it. We don't really explain it. We just give out the answer because we are sitting with 2,500 years of Pythagoras before us. This is exactly what is happening with Hemachandra. Hemachandra is not explaining how he came to this conclusion. He's merely giving out the solution, because Hemachandra did not discover the Fibonacci number. Hemachandra was sitting on thousands of years of knowledge of Fibonacci numbers before him. The ancient Hindus knew about the Fibonacci numbers thousands of years before Hemachandra. At this point, some of you will say, now Praveen, this is why YouTube bans you, this is why Facebook bans you, this is why Twitter bans you, because you exaggerate things. Now, it's one thing if you say Hemachandra gave the right answer about Fibonacci number before Fibonacci in 1150 AD. But why are you exaggerating this and saying that there was thousands of years of knowledge about Fibonacci numbers before Hemachandra? This is why, you get banned, because you exaggerate Indian history. I have actual proof of this. there was a great mathematician called Pingala. He was a Hindu mathematician. He was living around 200 B.C. Some scholars even believe that he was living much older in time, around 500 B.C. But most historians accept that he was living around 200 B.C. And Pingala actually put the Fibonacci numbers in a text, and he called the Fibonacci number as Matra Meru.
One, two, breathe, 3, 4, and...
This is the original name of the Fibonacci numbers. If you look up the text of Pingala, you will be astonished because Pingala clearly lays out how the Fibonacci numbers work 2,200 years ago. And not only that, Pingala also discovered the Pascal's triangle. Now, Pingala really lays out how short syllables and long syllables fill up these spaces, and he clearly explains the Fibonacci series as we know it today. And maybe this is too dull for you, short syllable, long syllable, Sanskrit, the old language. Maybe this is just too dull for you. If you're young, you may think this is just too boring. So let's switch gears. So let's say you want to do some competitive exam. You want to take SAT, GRE, IIT exam. You want to maybe do IPS or IAS. And you will encounter a question like this. So these are the steps in a staircase. And you can take one step or you can take 2 steps. How many combinations can you use if there are a total of 10 steps? The answer is the 10th Fibonacci number. This is a very complicated question you will encounter today if you're taking a very advanced exam. Believe it or not, this is actually used in computer programming. This is called dynamic programming. Programmers use this. And the answer to all these complicated questions that you will face today were given by a Hindu mathematician 2,200 years ago. This is why I call the Fibonacci number as a Hindu number, which originated in ancient India. Now you know that Fibonacci number was originally a Hindu number, but did Fibonacci steal this number, hide the sources to promote himself? No, he did not. Why? Because his name is not Fibonacci at all. It's very interesting because Fibonacci has written an amazing book called the Liber Abaci. It transformed the way Europe was doing business and mathematics. But Fibonacci never spoke about himself. In fact, most scholars are still debating about what his original name was. Most people think his original name was Leonardo Bonacci, but they're still not sure. And Fibonacci was a very modest person, and he did not promote himself. And even better, Fibonacci gave full credit to the Hindu mathematical system. In fact, in his book, he called this new system as modus Indorum, which means the method of the Indians. In fact, Fibonacci goes one step further. He not only praises Hindu mathematical system, he even says When you compare the Hindu mathematical system with Arabs and Pythagoras, Pythagoras seems almost like a mistake. This is incredible because Fibonacci is saying when you compare Pythagoras, who's considered the father of mathematics by many people, when you compare Pythagoras with the Hindu system, Pythagoras seems almost like a mistake. If somebody walks up to you and he says Pythagoras is a mistake, you would think this person is nuts. But it is Fibonacci who's saying this. He was a great mathematician. So maybe he knew something that we don't. And Fibonacci was a transformative genius. He did many transformations. He created a new world, and we actually live in the new world that he created. Let me show you what he did, but first let me clear this board. Around 1200 AD, Fibonacci.
શું કેવું છે ભાઈ, ચાલુ રાખવું છે કે ઇટ્સ ગોઈંગ ઓવરબોર્ડ? વોટ્સ ઇટ ગાઈસ? Should we call it a day? કે સુઈ ગયા બધાય? હેલો?
ના સર જાગે જ છે.
તો ઠીક, ચાલુ રાખવું છે કે પછી should I stop it over here? Actually, I have crossed the time limit. So,
સર સ્ટોપ કરી દેવાય
okay. ઈ મને
છે
યાદ આવી ગયું.
પણ સર નું ચાલે જ સર એટલે
કોઈ વાંધો નહીં, યાદ આવી ગયું મને અત્યારે એકદમ જ અચાનક, કારણ કે હું એનગ્રોસ થઈ ગયો હતો સાંભળવામાં. સો આઈ ફોરગોટ ઇટ કે આપણે 1 કલાકનું કમ્પલ્શન રાખ્યું છે. બટ સ્ટીલ આઈ વુડ પ્રિફર કે સ્ટોપ થઈ જઈએ. બટ છતાંય લાસ્ટ કોલ ઇઝ ઓન યુ બિકોઝ ધીસ ઇઝ યોર ક્લબ, ફોર યુ, બાય યુ એન્ડ ઓફ યુ. તો તમે લોકો જ વોટ ઇન કરો કે કેટલા લોકોને બંધ કરવું છે, એ હેન્ડ રેઝ કરી નાખો. હાઉ મેની ઓફ યુ ફીલ દેટ વી શુડ સ્ટોપ ઇટ? ફાઇન, કહી દેવું ભાઈ. આવું કંઈક હોય ત્યારે હું કદાચ જો એવી રીતે એનગ્રોસ થઈ જાઉં, ઇટ્સ ગ્રેટ. સો આઈલ જસ્ટ ગીવ મી સેકન્ડ. So I'll stop it. Yes, so it has stopped. Thank you so much for the answer. કોઈને કાંઈ પૂછવું હોય, કાંઈ કહેવું હોય તો માઇક ચાલુ કરીને બોલી શકે છે. And Aesha is over here. Before we just end it up, any one of you કંઈ કહેવું હોય તો? હેન્ડ્સ ડાઉન કરી નાખજો. જેને કંઈ વાતચીત કરવી છે એ જ માઇક ઓપન કરીને વાત કરશે. Anyone? Yes, Shreya, do you want to ask or say something? Okay, hands down. So, if nothing, then Tora, how many of them have given their names for tomorrow? Before we just end the topic.
Yes, sir. There are 12 names.
Are they all over here?
No, sir, not all are there. And there are 12 names, but right now Shraddha texted me that she won't be able to come tomorrow.
Okay.
So she won't come because of obvious reasons. Yeah, so some of them are there here.
Okay. Can
And from
can
boys,
they raise their
Tarang is
hands?
there.
Yes. Can they raise their hands, please? જે કાલે જવાના છે એ લોકો પોતાનો હાથ ઊંચો કરશો પ્લીઝ. ચાર જણાના હાથ ઊંચા થયા. ઈશા, you're not going? Okay, 6 જણા.
No, sir. મારે કાલે પ્રેક્ટિકલ છે.
Okay. બીજા કોના કોના નામ છે દ્વારા? If you just speak out the names other than the 6.
Yes, just a second. I'll take out the list.
હેમાંગી તું નથી જવાની બેટા? માધવ, જૈનિક?
નો સર, મારે પણ પ્રેક્ટિકલ છે ને એટલે.
હમ.
સર મારે પણ practical.
So, Nikita, Janvi, then Bansi is there, Bharti is there,
These are from TY.
Purvesh and
These are from
Shreya.
TY.
Yes, these are from TY, and Aesha, Shreya, they are from SY.
Okay. શ્રેયા
And
તો
Ami, yes.
I think અહીંયા હમણાં હતી ઈ જ ને શ્રેયા? I think she left.
हाँ sir, Shreya Kubawat.
She was here, she just left. So જેટલા અહીંયા હાજર છે એટલા લોકોને જસ્ટ ખાલી કહી દઉં જે જવાના છે એ વોટ યુ આર સપોઝ ટુ ડુ ઇઝ કાલે સવારે તમે કાસુંદ્રા સાહેબ હારે વાત કરજો. બાય ધ વે તોરા તે વાત કરી, વાત થઈ કઈ કાસુંદ્રા સાહેબ જોડે?
Yes sir, હા સર મારી વાત થઈ ગઈ છે. એમને કીધું છે કે ત્યાંની વેકેન્સી એટલી બધી નથી, so 6 students only are allowed to go there.
Fine. In that case, what you should do is 3 girls and 3 boys. તરંગ, તારા સિવાય બોયઝમાંથી કોણ છે?
સર પૂર્વેશે કીધું તો કે જાશે.
Okay. Then in that case, what you should do is there will be 4 girls and 2 boys. So, Tarang, are you there? Hello. Hello. I guess he's not listening.
સર તમને કેમ મારું માઇક નથી ચાલતું?
હા આવ્યો અવાજ આવ્યો.
એટલે સર
હા આવ્યો અવાજ આવ્યો. સો એનીવેઝ તું અને પૂર્વેશ જો તમે બે જવાના હો તો પછી 4 ગર્લ્સ જાય, બરોબર છે? સો ઇન દેટ કેસ મસ્ત બહુ વધારે ટાઈમ નથી જવાનો. એન્ડ ડોન્ટ વરી, તમે લોકો તમારા ઇયરફોન્સ જે છે એ સાથે રાખજો બધા જ, બરોબર છે? તો તમારે કોઈ પણ જગ્યાએ છે તમારે જોઈન થવાનું હોય તો તમે ક્લાસીસમાં જોઈન થઈ શકો, બરોબર છે? યુ કુડ જસ્ટ લિસન ટુ ધ ક્લાસીસ. સો એ કરવાની છૂટ છે. અને બાકીની 4 ગર્લ્સ જે જવાની છે હવે, તો 4 ગર્લ્સની અંદર 2 ગર્લ્સ એસવાયની જશે અને 2 ગર્લ્સ ટીવાયની જશે. ઓકે? સો એસવાયમાંથી અત્યારે આઈ થિંક બટ ઈશા ઇઝ ધી ઓનલી પર્સન જેનો હાથ રેઝ થયેલો છે. ઈશા, કુડ યુ જસ્ટ ઓપન યોર માઇક? સો તારી સાથે કોઈ પણ એક છોકરી આવશે, એની વન. કોનું નામ છે?
શ્રેયા હતી.
ઓકે,
શ્રેયા હતી મારી બેગ.
ઓકે, તો તું અને શ્રેયા, બરોબર છે? એન્ડ ઇફ પોસિબલ વોટ યુ ડુ ઇઝ ત્વરા,
યસ સર.
તારી સાથે કોઈ પણ એક, હવે આમાં બાકી કોણ રહ્યું અત્યારે? જેવિકા અને નિકિતા. જેવિકા અને નિકિતા બેમાંથી એક છે. અને પ્રિયા, યસ, પ્રિયા ઇઝ ઓલ્સો ધેર. કોણ આમાંથી સ્વેચ્છાએ છોડશે? નહીંતર હું એક નામ દઈ દઉં. સ્વેચ્છાએ છોડવું હોય માઇક ઓપન કરીને બોલ દો હું સ્વેચ્છાએ છોડું છું એમ. બાય ધ વે ઈશા, તારી પાસે 2 વ્હીલર છે?